To me now. Hello, Elena.
Hello again, Lorna.
So, what's hitting the headlines this Friday?
Well, let's take a look first at Le Figaro. They've got quite a rare coup for a French paper, an exclusive interview with Barack Obama. Now, this is about the anniversary of the 11th of September, so the headline here is those who attacked us on the 11th of September have failed. In the interview, Obama says that the Arab Spring is the ultimate proof that the Arab world has now rejected Islamic extremism in favour of democracy and secularism, and therefore what the Al-Qaeda were trying to do on the 11th of September has failed. He says their aim was to create a huge breach between the US and the Arab world. He does say that during the time of his predecessor, the two didn't really see eye to eye. But of course, the anniversary isn't really the time for political point scoring, so he doesn't go into too much detail there. He just says the US had a difficult period in its relations with the Arab world, and now they're much better. He, of course, gives the credit to his own foreign policy there, showing that the way he's dealt with the Arab Spring shows that the US has realised that while they support democracy in the Arab world, they're not going to stand around and tell Arab governments what they should and should not do.
So quite a rosy outlook there from Mr. Obama in Le Figaro. But the business paper La Tribune here in France has got a rather less optimistic take on the legacy of 9/11, hasn't it?
Yes, its headline is what the 11th of September cost America, and the answer is an awful lot. They say the city of New York alone had to spend $100 million just on clearing up the collapse of the Twin Towers. And overall, they say the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have cost the American state $3,000 billion, which is a crazy sum, really, to get your head around. They do point out that this is one of the main reasons why America is facing such economic trouble now. Of course, international markets forces have something to do with it, but a lot of it is just the sheer cost of those wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and a lot of that public money, they say, went into private hands. That is, the security companies who carried out a lot of the fighting in Afghanistan, the private firms who took over intelligence gathering and domestic security in the US, and big arms manufacturers like Halliburton and BAE Systems, who've been some of the main beneficiaries of the 9/11 decade, as the paper calls it. Both of those companies have seen their profits nearly double since 2001.
Well, let's have a look at some of the other front pages. Any other big stories around here in France?
There's a big French politics story, which is here on the front page of Libération. It's about Jean-Noël Guérini. He's the regional president of the Bouches-du-Rhône, which is the Marseille region. The front page headline here says it's a dirty business for the Socialist Party. Why? Well, he's being investigated on corruption charges. He has a brother who is a property developer who is himself being charged with an assortment of offences, including corruption, money laundering, bribing officials, and so on. And Guérini, the politician, is accused of having designated some land as a nature reserve so that it could be sold off very cheaply to his brother to develop. But it's quite a major charge. He could face 5 years in prison, the paper says, and it's very embarrassing for the Socialist Party's presidential candidates who've all backed him in the past and are now scrambling to take their distances from him.
OK, well, let's move on to a bit of sports news now. The Rugby World Cup kicking off this Friday in New Zealand. What are the French papers making of it all?
Well, they're very excited. Here on the front page of Le Parisien, you can see the All Blacks doing the haka, and inside the paper says 60% of French people prefer rugby to football, perhaps because the French team is a little bit more successful with the oval ball. But nevertheless, they're very excited inside. They've got step-by-step instructions for their readers on how to do the haka, which I'm not going to demonstrate right now.
That is a
but
shame.
If you want to learn, Lorna, you should have a look at the paper.
Right. Look at the diagram in Le Parisien.
Absolutely. And inside they give you a little bit of history about the team, about the haka, and why exactly the All Blacks decided to start using it again, or why it's so terrifying to opposition teams. Apparently the Maori warriors who came up with it used to eat their enemies after the battles. So
I don't think we'll be seeing
a little bit
Bleu
menacing.
doing that. Well, hopefully not, anyway.
Hopefully not. Anyway,
but they've got hopefully a pretty good chance of winning it this year. Certainly that's...
Well, Le Parisien is not actually that optimistic. They say a French team might do well in their own group where they're not facing too much tricky opposition. But if they come up against the All Blacks or another big team like England, they don't necessarily fancy their own chances.
Of course, the All Blacks on home turf, that's traditionally always an advantage, isn't it? Thank you very much indeed, Elena, for that look at all this Friday's French newspaper headlines. Now, still to come here on Live from Paris, she's